Tell us in short how Jobful was born and what made you choose this particular business idea.
Well, I'd say Jobful was born based on an idea from one of our customers. We actually started as a gamification agency for human resources. So we were trying to add game techniques for different HR processes. And at some point, one of the larger banks in Romania told us that the reddest ocean is in recruitment. Why don't we do something in that field? And for us, the timing was perfect because creating a business, an agency business, can be challenging, and you depend over and over again every single month or quarter on new projects. You're reinventing the wheel. And we wanted to build a product business. And that's when we decided back in 17, we decided to pilot. And the very next year we launched Jobful.
What attracted you to the idea of being a startup owner? Or do you remember when you first heard about this concept of startups, of founders?
Yeah, I think so. Back then I was part of Alternative University, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. But entrepreneurship was a big topic over there. And at my end, I think one of my core values is freedom. And after working in enterprise space, in sales team for Microsoft and SAP, the very next milestone for me was to make sure that I'm in the driving seat. So that's when I decided to leave my previous employer and make sure that we create an organization just like we wanted. Because I think there were a lot of differences between how we perceive work and what we wanted to create as an environment for our organization and what we've seen around us. So it was an insightful period of time regarding how we enjoy work.
Do you remember when was that?
I think it was back in 2018 because I was doing Jobful in parallel with my job. And I was able to see the differences. I was working during the day for SAP or for Microsoft, and during the evening and weekends I was working on my dream, so to say. So it was obvious for me the difference between a job and building a business.
Speaking about building a business, your own business, did you ever thought that first, did you have also a plan B in case Jobful, as it is now or as you build it so far, failed?
Great question. The short answer is no. The long answer is I know I was never ready for anything that I've done. I was not ready to organize the largest event of BEST, Board of European Students of Technology, in my fourth year at university. I was never ready to be part of the enterprise sales team in Microsoft. Not never, I wasn't ready at the very beginning, but the mindset was always, I'll figure it out one way or another, which I think in terms of how I operate or how a founder operates, it's critical. Because you never know enough or everything for what's coming next. It's your own growth that is driving the growth of your business, your own and your team's growth. So the long answer is I don't think I was ready for anything that I started, but I was successful with almost everything that I've continued doing.
While building Jobful, what did you find most difficult, let's say, or challenging when building the business?
Yeah. I think the industry that we chose is not the easiest, HR in general. But this is, I wouldn't call this the number one challenge. The way I see it, the biggest challenge is finding the right people. And where we encounter in general challenges, difficulties, lack of productivity, all sorts of um, tough times was always in relationship with other people. And other people, I mean, can be employees, it can be partners or vendors, it can be investors, it can be, I think, the most difficult part in this life is working with people, not with processes, not with markets, not with figures or anything else. The most difficult part is working with people.
You do have a startup that kind of deals or revolves around people.
I think that's on purpose as well. I think me as a person and the founding team, we're crazy about people. It is difficult, but understanding them, trying to motivate them, finding different solutions, working together, I think this is one of the most beautiful parts of our work life.
You mentioned funding, and my question, the same question as before, what did you find challenging when trying to raise money?
Well, I think for me it was, I wouldn't say it was hard to find capital. At least that's my experience. I think coming from a background of sales, positioning the value that we're driving, the opportunity of investing in Jobful, it wasn't the tough part. I would say the toughest part was, or still is, misplaced trust. I think in the Romanian market, the ecosystem of angel investors, and not only angel investors, capital providers in general, still works in some regards on a very old mindset. And that very old mindset goes something like this. If I put the money, I want to have the control. If I put the money, you'll do what I say. If I put the money is the most important part as a mindset. So I can take it off whenever I want, whenever it's tough, whenever things don't work well, which I think it's something we need to change in the Romanian market. I think financial education is something we should invest in, and making sure that founders and startups in general don't end up as victims of these investors should be a priority. But it's not just yet. And I think in many regards, investors look at founders not as opportunity to multiply their money, but as ways of controlling and in some cases damaging the startups, especially in crisis period like the COVID-19 crisis or the war in Ukraine. So I'd say misplaced trust is the number one challenge in the relationship with investors.
Did you build Jobful with the purpose of being an international company, of having clients not only from Romania but also from outside Romania?
Yeah, I think in some regards I'm quite weird, meaning that the way I operate, it quite often happens to me just to walk down the street or stay at home, and my mind goes to what could mean the next level, what is coming next, how we could change new markets, how we could impact a larger population, how we can have also a social impact component. So I think for me, I never had a challenge of envisioning what's next and becoming a global company. That's not actually the purpose. We redefined success not long ago. Today for us, success means having an impact in people's life and making sure that this impact that we're driving, it's helping both businesses and individuals. So in that regard, the thoughts of how fast, how big it can go, this constant rush after money and this mental framework of capitalist world, I think doesn't really resonate with our organization. It's more important for me to have a happy team that is delivering impactful projects than it would be to raise, I don't know how much money. I think the journey is more important than what you can see in the press of another round, booming another startup or whatever.
You mentioned that the idea changed when it first began as a project in itself. What opportunities did you observe on the market at that point when you started?
Yeah, I think the reason for that bank recommending us to go towards talent acquisition is quite clear. At that point of time, 2017, 2018, there were a lot of investments in the Romanian market, in shared services, in new companies coming to Romania. There was a period of time when candidates were making the market. So everyone was running after them, regardless of domain. So not only in IT, but demand and supply was not balanced at that point of time. And what we said, and the very first idea when we started was, well, if we can motivate the individuals, then for sure we'll have an impact in the business process. Because HR tech in general focuses on digitizing the business process. So you're looking at screening, selection, applicant tracking system as solutions. You're looking on the end of the organization that wants to employ someone. But the toughest challenges were actually when people said, I didn't get an answer, so I don't need this anymore. Or it can be in terms of the process is quite incoherent, so I'm dropping off, I'd rather go for another opportunity. When we started, the mindset was, let's make sure that we eliminate pain points for candidates and we create this experience as engaging and desirable as possible for the candidate. That didn't change for a while. I think the moment it started changing was during the pandemic, or at the very beginning of the pandemic, because we were a marketplace and we were selling access to candidates. But in 2020, few organizations were looking for candidates. There were 3 different approaches: fight, flight, or freeze. I would say fight is less than 1%. So let's continue hiring, let's continue the processes in order to grow our businesses. Flight, there were some examples of, we want to lay off some people, not hire some people. But most of them were freezing. We'll wait for a year or so and we'll figure it out after that. And for us, it was a moment when we pivoted. We said, well, if we want to go outside Romania in this model, we need 500,000 just to open Hungary in order to bring the candidates that we can sell in terms of access. And that's when we decided, well, we have all this technology that is doing an amazing job. Why wouldn't we go for a SaaS approach and implement it dedicatedly for different organizations? I think it was an important and good decision at that point of time. In the meantime, we pivoted again. Now we have both models. Now we're opening new markets. Now we have our very first Fortune 500 customer. But I would say at that point of time, we were listening to our gut and our perspective of where the market could go. Today, we're listening to our customers.
A different approach.
A very different approach, yeah. They know best whatever they need.
How did you see the Romanian startup ecosystem when you first started Jobful, and how did you see it evolve during these years?
Oh, where should I start? I think it's in a process of maturing, and it's been ever since I started. I think to some degree I can see improvements, more interest. I can see a better approach of different players in the ecosystem in relationship with startups. In other regards, I think we're still where we were 5 or 6 years ago, or even more. I think one thing that didn't change was this constant rush of glorifying investments, which is great. I think it's for the press and for people reading the press, it's what they're looking for. Another million, 5 million, 3 million, whatever. It's catching the eye. I think it's also creating a perspective that doesn't really compute for founders or for future founders, because every single founder starts a company with a couple of motivators. I think this glorifying approach is driving people who are looking for glory in the entrepreneurship space. And going for glory in entrepreneurship, at my end, I think it's surely failing. If you want to create a company, you should find better motivation within yourself, because sooner or later, being glorified is just not enough. It's not consistent enough in order to keep you going. It should be more important than glory in order to create a successful company.
What's good and what's bad, let's say, about Romanian startup founders from your perspective?
I think one of the good things is that there's so many things you can do in the Romanian market. There's so many things that are not working, and I think you can just walk for a day around and you can find 10 different ideas of doing something better. So the fact that we don't have such an evolved economy or society offers us a lot of opportunities. In that regard, I think Romanian market, it's an amazing market to start with. For founders as well, from what I've seen, in more developed economies, it's easier to access capital, to find other founders with more experience, to find resources, knowledge, and so on. The fact that you need to struggle in the Romanian market and find for yourself different solutions, I think it creates stronger founders that can grow organizations not from a comfort mindset of accessing opportunities and resources, but from a hunger perspective of I want more, I want better, I want larger impact, and I've been struggling so far, so struggle is not something that I'm afraid of. I think in that regard, the Romanian market is better for founders than other markets. Now, it really depends who you ask, because we probably have more startups and better impact in our economy if knowledge, resources, capital were already in place and easy to access. But it really depends what you want to have in the ecosystem.
How do you consider the funding opportunities for startups in Romania? Or I don't know, what do you feel that's missing, and what do you feel that Romanian investors should do more when working with startups, with startup founders?
Oh, another good question. I don't know where to start, to be honest. I think the way funding is happening today is unbalanced, just like demand and supply a few years ago between candidates and jobs or employers. I think today there are a lot of founders that are running after investors and accepting to give 20%, 30% of their company very early stage because they really need capital. And I think it's limiting their long-term perspectives. At the other end, I think it's appealing for an investor in Romania to be able to push their agenda or to make sure that they get the most of that interaction. What I'm sharing with different mentees, different founders that I'm working with, what I'm constantly sharing is that when you're looking for funding, the qualification process should go both ways. for sure the investors should want to be part of the startup and invest. That's very important. Just as important in my view is that we as founders would like to work with that professionals. So we don't see only access to capital, which can be very relevant, but we also see people that we resonate with and want within our circle, so to say. And that's one of the reasons that we prefer to go for convertible notes instead of equity. And 95% of our rounds were on convertible. The mindset being that a convertible note, it's like getting engaged. You don't split a company, you're not both shareholders, you don't have the same liabilities and opportunities as you have in terms of equity. That's the marriage, that's when you decide to go all in. But I think a period of time where you validate, or both parties validate that this is a good relationship that can drive impact and success, however we define the success for both parties involved, I think is very important. And at least for me, over the last 3-4 years, I think some of my toughest and most expensive lessons were about working with angel investors that do not really understand the needs of a startup.
Looking back at what's happened and the evolution of Jobful and your own evolution, do you think that it was harder or easier starting from Romania?
Compared to what? To the idea of starting from a different market? I wouldn't know. I think, at least for me, as I've been working in the Romanian market and creating my own network, I was already, I think, 27, 28 when I started the company, and the previous 8 years were highly invested in meeting new people. I think for me it was better in some regards. I also think that the Romanian market, in terms of workforce market, is diverse enough, it's challenging enough that we get multiple perspectives on how we can address talent acquisition and employment in general. Once again, I wouldn't know if things would look better or worse in a different market, but I wouldn't change anything.
What do you think that is our secret ingredient, let's say, as Romanian startup founders? Your secret ingredient as startup founders, as the same compared to startup founders from the region or larger Europe or region or I don't know, the States even?
I think a secret sauce at my end is that I know how to create and build genuine relationships. I know how to share from a vulnerable space the goods and the bads, be transparent, work together with people that have more expertise than me, accept feedback. At my end, I think that the best thing that I've done, one of the good things that I've done, is that I created very strong relationships with my investors, with my team, with my collaborators, and other people within my ecosystem. I strongly believe that if you come in a relationship from a very safe space, it doesn't matter if there are 10 crises in parallel, because you're relying on your relationship to find a solution in that situation. And I think that was something that drove over time a lot of value for Jobful. Now, I think there are other things. I have a technical background, so I graduated computer science. It's easy for me to work with developers and understand technology at a broader level, not necessarily developing software development. And I also have a background in sales. So my startup is tech startup, and the most important parts are software development and business development. I had access to a lot of experience and expertise over the time for both areas. So I think that's a great advantage at my end. The fact that I can look both from a technical perspective and a business perspective and put them together in order to find the best solutions.
How do you see the evolution of the Romanian startup ecosystem, let's say in the next 5-10 years? Where do you think we're heading?
From what I know, there's a lot of interest for the Romanian startup ecosystem. We've been working and are still working with one of the large players in the Turkish startup ecosystem. And not only, we also have been part in an accelerator in New York, another one in Berlin. I think a common perspective all around us was that the Romanian market has huge potential because we have IT talent, because we have less capital. Over the time we had less access to capital. There's plenty of reasons why the Romanian market startup ecosystem is attractive. What I think it's very important to find out, and I'm sure we'll find out together for the next couple of years, is if the Romanian market will stay as a huge potential market or actually deliver on this promise. And I think that's on every single player or actor in the ecosystem. That's on capital providers, it's on founders, it's on accelerators, knowledge providers. And I think one of the key aspects in order to achieve our potential, so to say, is a kinder way of looking at startup ecosystem from society. I think although we glorify startups and founders, the space that is most familiar for our society is one of criticism. And I don't think it's a bad thing, because criticism can be translated in great feedback generally. But I think we don't have the same mindset that I've seen in Germany, for example, that if I'm buying from a local provider, if I'm investing in a local solution or startup, I'm actually investing in our economy and in the well-being of our society on the longer term. In Romania, I've seen more often, if it's from Romania, maybe it's not that good. Maybe we should go for a solution from a different place. Because once again, we don't have the financial education to understand macroeconomy. But I hope we will. I hope the actors involved will continue to contribute and that the Romanian market will achieve its potential.
Did you guys ever had this problem of, well, it has an English name, but they're from Romania, I don't know.
For sure, is the short answer. It can be a negotiating anchor to say that, oh, it's a startup, you're just starting, so let's find the best prices for us. It can be that approach, and in some regards, we've seen that happening. It can be a mistrust in the Romanian society and ecosystem, and that happens quite often. It can also be this, how can I put it? I would say there's a specific mindset that we've seen over the time in corporate space. That part of the culture of that corporation becomes the Bible of some professionals. And in that regard, for us, we had an internal rule, so to say, that we're rarely hiring people from corporate space after a couple of years. Because corporate, what usually tells you is that this is your square, this is what you have to do. If you go outside the square, we're gonna have a problem. And startup ecosystem it's the opposite. It's, well, we hired you so you can tell us what to do, not for us to tell you what to do. Because as the success of the company is broken down in the success of every single one of us. So don't think of any square, it's unlimited. Do as much as possible and as good as possible. And as we grow and as we deliver more and better and more productive, we'll all have to win. So it's a very different approach. And unfortunately, in the Romanian market, the approach of founders, or the one that I just mentioned, is something very new. Historically, we've been a country of shared services and outsourcing companies. So in most cases, there were some other people somewhere else that were telling us what to do. And I think building your truth and your backbone for your own company, it's something that doesn't come naturally from our culture and society. It's something that you need to train, you need to learn, and you need to perform on it every single day.
What's next for Jobful by the end of this year and in 2024? What are your plans?
Well, we're in the middle of an extraordinary period in our startup. We're planning a 300% growth this year. We just signed our very first Fortune 500 customer. We are also investing in the university space and working with career centers in universities. We have a new partnership with Nest for social impact. Apart from Jobs for Ukraine, we're doing another project for people with disabilities. Our team tripled over the last 3 months, and we'll probably do another 3x for the next 12 months. We have some opportunities in terms of capital, but we're more careful now that we don't really need it as it was the case maybe a few years back during the crisis. But I think one of the most important parts, and why I'm happy about Jobful's future, is that we managed to create a happy team. And I think that's the number one driver of success. Regardless of how fast we're going, I think the people that we're going with are actually creating the entire experience. So I'm very excited for the future, and I'm quite sure that we'll have more information for you quite soon.
And my last question, what title would you give to a documentary about the Romanian startup ecosystem?
The title of a documentary, I would give the name Make or Break. The time has come for our ecosystem to either flourish or break down within its own pressure.